I'd like to first go around the table. I'm Linda Lukowski, School Committee.
Brian Forget, Superintendent Triton.
Sherry David, Raleigh Select Board.
Christine Nealon, Raleigh Select Board.
Rodney Ray Parrott, Salisbury Select Board.
Michael Colbert, Salisbury Select Board.
Peter Cicillo, Raleigh.
Richard Keys, Newbury Finance Committee.
Donna Abdallah, Salisbury Selectmen.
Aaron Burgess, School Committee.
Paul Mayette, Newbury School Committee.
Kelly Smellman, School Committee.
Larry White, Raleigh Finance.
Matt Landers, School Committee.
Caitlin Hunter, School Committee.
Nerissa Wallen, School Committee.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. I've watched or attended the recent town board meetings, and I know there are a lot of strong emotions coming into this meeting. I'm just going to ask that we keep things respectful. I'm hopeful we can talk through a lot of the things that we would like to discuss, but sometimes this is going to come down to agreeing to disagree. We all need to be professional and be respectful of the person who's speaking at the time. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the notes from the January 23rd and February 27th meeting. No formal vote is needed. There are notes and not official meetings, but does anyone have any comments or clarifications they would like to make? Seeing none. A general update. While we've been meeting a lot, we haven't done much talking about what's going on in our schools. The superintendent is going to give a recap of the busy past couple of months.
All right. So to start off with some positives, so our students have been really successful of late. We both in performing arts, we had our high school drama team, our theater department, become a semifinalist at the state drama competition, so they made it on. They did not proceed from the semifinals, but they did make it to the semifinals, so congratulations to them. I hope I saw some of you there. We had a district-wide art show that featured students from across the district. I will call out there's a monster project, if you hear people talking about the monster project and what that is. So first graders, second graders drew monsters. High school students, some middle school students did some other artistic redrawing. High school, mostly seniors, juniors and seniors in ceramics, recreated the picture, their own interpretation in ceramics. And it's awesome. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, I'm sure there's plenty of pictures around. And if you want to see some, let me know, because I know they're all over the place and people would love to share them. Really cool project. Love seeing our youngest and our oldest students collaborating, the way the older artists interpret the younger students and talking to the little kiddos when they see what the older kids make of their art. It was awesome. So real fun celebration. Winter Guard, which is our color guard in the winter. They were first in their division, placed there mid-February. And then on the athletic side of the house, hockey, wrestling, and winter track have all had some stellar seasons. And so kudos to those individual athletes that performed incredibly well, had incredible seasons, as well as teams. So some things to celebrate. Just some updates. I'm assuming you're hearing since November when question 2 passed, and we got rid of the competency determination tied to MCAS. There's still a lot of misconception around we got rid of the MCAS. The MCAS exists. It's still a requirement right on up through grade 10. It's now no longer tied as a graduation requirement. So if you're interested in a lot of detail, watch back the last few school committee meetings, because we've been talking about this in greater detail. But to make sure you're aware in case folks come to you, the competency determination, or CD, is different than the graduation requirement. So there is an effort that the governor has started to put together a statewide graduation requirement that doesn't exist now. Similarly, there's been iterations and lack of clarity around what the competency determination means now without the MCAS. So the committee approved a policy, that was your February meeting, I believe, right? February 12th, that updates our graduation requirements and puts into place the standard to achieve the competency determination. Ultimately, the hope is that we have a state graduation requirement that encompasses the competency determination. Currently, two separate things. In essence, need to pass two years of English, 2 years of math, and then one of the 4 sciences at the high school is current. And we have paths for those students who may not have achieved their CD because they couldn't pass the MCAS. We now have an avenue for those students to come back, get their CD, which again is different than a graduation requirement. So I'm not sure, there's probably a lot of conversation around that, but wanted to make sure you're all clear. Certainly if there are questions, let me know. Did want to confirm 2 other things. School year calendar was approved in the March meeting. Largely the same calendar overall, shifting professional development days, the half days to Wednesdays rather than Fridays, on the premise that educators will be more engaged in professional development in the middle of the week rather than a Friday afternoon. So
That took years, yeah.
Yep. So
Switch it from.
yep. So that is into place next year, on the calendar posted on the website now, in case you hear about that. And then the final thing to confirm, we had 2 appointments for the Whittier school committee this year. Both Salisbury, Ron Fitzgerald was up. He was the only person who put his name in, and he was reappointed. In Rowley, there were 3, incumbent David Irving, Bernie Cullen, and then Cesar Pagliara. Paglia, thank you. Didn't write the names down, should have. Italian. So the school committee appointed Caesar to that position. So it is Ron, Rowley's rep is Cesar, and then Joanna True is the Newbury rep. She is due for reappointment next school year. So they're on a staggering basis. So that's all I have by way of updates. Unless there are questions about anything you've seen, heard, or otherwise have questions about.
Isn't there something that just occurred, was it the district level, Spirit Week or something, or underground something?
So yeah, several of the schools did Underground Spirit Week for staff. I mean, it's school-wide, and so the kind of the premise is staff decides on the themes. There's no information provided to the students, and then the students need to figure out what's going on. So that did occur this past week at various schools. It wasn't at all schools. That was done individually by school. But yeah, check out Facebook. The district site reposts a lot of the school posts, and so there's some great Twin Day and Sandals and Socks Day.
I walked in on 80s Day.
80s Day.
No idea what
Yes.
was going on. And
There was some
There was-
mad props for 80s Day. It was
80s Day had
alive.
some people
Yes.
all in.
Yes.
So you think about all those parents. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's just
We know how to dress there.
take you back in time. Yeah.
I just want to real quick say thank you to the whole school board for listening to us on who we want to represent us. Ron does a really good job, and I think that will help some of their miscommunication that's been going on by you guys reaching out to us and making sure we understand who represents us in Whittier.
Appointment of the Director of Finance and Operations. As you'll remember, Brian Perry, Triton's former Director of Finance and Operations, put in his notice early this year. We have an interim plan director for Triton through the end of this year, a retired business official who we will be very lucky to have. Last week, the superintendent made a recommendation to the school committee for a great permanent hire, and the school committee did confirm that. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent.
Sure. I will just say briefly, you will have an opportunity to meet both Dave and Rich in the near future. So first to start, to say thank you to Brian Perry. He was with us for only a year. He came from the town side, strictly finance side of things. Very talented, very skilled. Wanted to dabble into the education space that the finance role is finance and operations, so it's much broader. And so ultimately decided it wasn't a fit, so he had let me know back over the winter, gave several months notice, and allowed us to complete a search. So in the interim, David Bertolino joined us officially this past Monday on an interim basis. David was the Director of Finance and Ops in Medway for I think 19 years. Then did a stint as the Executive Director of the Mass Association of School Business Officials, and then finished his career as the Assistant Superintendent of Finance for Acton-Boxborough. So he understands school finance strongly, understands regions, and so he's come in as the interim through June 30th with a real strong history of being able to not just keep the ship afloat, but also give us an opportunity to analyze and look at our practice and see where we can be better. So excited about that. Appreciate Dave stepping back in out of retirement, and I should say on record, thank you to his wife too, who allowed that to happen. And then also, as Linda mentioned, after completing a search, we have the unique opportunity to be able to have the permanent individual transition in over a period of time. So Richard Poore is currently the principal at Cosentino Middle School in Haverhill, has been moving towards the Director of Finance and Operations, school business official side of things for a while, has all of his licenses and more. He is fully MCPPO certified, which is a requirement for a school building project. You may have heard we got one going on, and so he will be pivotal there. And so he comes to us, again, most recently from Haverhill as a middle school principal, but I'm thrilled because I think he brings a strong skill set and an eagerness to learn and a lot of energy to bring expertise and to keep the good things going. So I could go through more detail. Anyone that wants to see a resume, it's 4 pages. He has more degrees, certainly more than I do. He's got doctorates, CAGs, NPAs, working on MEDs. So a highly trained, and I'm excited to welcome Richard to the position. He already has an email. He is already getting involved in things. He is fully, as I promised the superintendent in April, he is fully the principal of Cosentino Middle School through the end of the year, but it was certainly starting to get him involved, so there's a nice, strong transition when it officially transitions on July 1. We'll leave it at that, unless there are any questions.
I think we should add too, because you guys have heard about all the busing issues, that he already has a lot of experience dealing with our
I
bus
was
company.
just going to say that,
Yeah.
don't worry, I've already vetted him.
Right, knowing the ins and outs, so with our penalties built into our contract coming up in July, and him with, extensive experience knowing how they work internally, I think we're in a very good spot to really turn those things around.
And he has experience with the penalties.
Yes.
Yes, which is new to
Yes.
us, but not him.
Yes.
Principals and secretaries have a strong understanding of when buses are not working well and the ripple effects it throws through the entire school. So, yes.
Okay, the next item is the school building committee appointment. With the MSBA's invitation last December to partner on a project for the Byfield campus, there is a requirement to form a building committee. This group guides the project and makes recommendations to the school committee at major decision points. These committees can be small or large. Outside of a few MSBA required roles, the nomination process can be vary quite a bit. The Triton School Committee opted for a larger roster of 18. This was done to make sure we included as many voices as reasonably possible. The committee's roles are the superintendent, the director of finance and operations, facilities manager, principal of the middle school, principal of the high school, 2 school committee members, 1 from each of our member town select boards or the town manager or administrator, 1 middle school and 1 high school staff member, 1 middle school and 1 high school parent or guardian, 2 community members with industry experience, and 2 non-voting high school students. Rather than being nominated by the school committee, we opted for these individuals to be chosen by the groups that they represent, other than the community members, which were nominated by the superintendent and the facilities manager. The school committee voted on the appointments last Wednesday, and I've attached the list. I thank those of you who assisted during the nomination process and those who are serving on the building committee. The plan is to have this group begin meeting next month.
I think we have a confirmed date of April 1st. That will be, I think we just confirmed that right before I walked in here tonight, so.
The next item is the FY25 budget development. The school committee voted the final budget last Wednesday, March 12th, and the certified budget was submitted to the member towns before the March 15th deadline, which is in the original agreement. The superintendent is going to do a quick overview of the budget as approved.
So I guess at this point, I will say, I don't want to go over this again, because I feel like it is largely intact with what we've spoken about previously.
Donna wanted it line by
Did Donna?
line.
No, I did.
Did you want me to read?
Yes.
Please turn in your budgets page. So, the difference between the tentative and this, I'll point out as far as the figures, there's 8 pages of narrative that explain the process, where we're at, the route, this situation we find ourselves in with regard to the next steps. On pages 9 and 10, that is the summary of all of the changes. So from the current adjusted fiscal 25 budget, the year we're in, to next year, it is line by line any of the changes that are detailed in the following pages, school by school and then district-wide. To note, the previous iterations of this document included requests as well as those that were included, so not included. This is summarizing just those changes. On the second page, on page 10, it outlines additional savings that we're assuming that we do not yet know, as well as assumed cuts in the budget. So we're assuming an additional savings to get to the number that the committee approved. We're assuming savings of $300,000, currently in negotiations with our Public Employee Committee, which negotiates all health care on behalf of all members of the district. We are anticipating an additional $200,000 in circuit breaker revenue. That is, circuit breaker is a special education reimbursement program, Student Opportunity Act. It was supposed to give everyone money. It didn't. We knew that. As part of that, special education transportation was added to the calculation. It's never been fully funded. I think the legislators now understand that that has not been funded, and there's a commitment to fund it moving forward. That should yield about $200,000 more. So those two combined are assumptions of about $500,000. We feel very confident about those. And then there are 4 FTEs that are cut in this budget. There are 2 special education teachers who are retiring at the middle school. We're combining those programs for next year. That is savings for next year, with the caveat that we anticipate that, looking at the caseload of students coming up, that we would need to reinstate one of those, if not 2 of those, the following year to meet caseloads. Students can be together with an age span of up to 48 months providing IEP services. So we can achieve that for the essentials and the TLC programs that for the middle school and high school students next year. We are cutting the district wellness coordinator in this budget. Again, we've had lots of discussion about this, added during COVID, or I should say following COVID. And this is certainly a position we need. There are wellness standards that the state approved about 18 months ago. We are not very far along in implementing those. This was certainly a role of this position. Thankfully, we are not the only district who is struggling to find ways to implement those. But that is certainly a loss, but given the budget, something we agreed we could not support. And then there's a full-time teacher. It's currently unfilled in the current year based on course enrollments. And again, looking at course enrollments next year, that is currently happening. We believe we can remove that at the high school with minimal impact. So it leaves, I can say this is the first time, 20 years for me doing the budget, it leaves an undesignated cuts line there, a deficit of $350,000 that we need to close. There are, the committee, we've had conversation about how we plan to do that. We believe that we can close that gap without cutting additional staff. We talked about buses. We currently have 21 buses funded. We should be running 21 buses. We're down 1 bus in Salisbury and 1 bus in Rowley as far as numbers go. It works when all the drivers show up. It really doesn't work when the drivers don't show up. But even in the best of where we should be as far as ridership, I think there would be more parents who would put their students on the bus if buses were on time and performing as they should. And so I think that ultimately, eventually, if we can improve the service, we're going to need to put those back just based on numbers and how many students can ride. So we think we can remove those next year. I don't want to say no impact, less impact than cutting classroom teachers. We also do anticipate there is some momentum at the state level for more aid through Chapter 70, circuit breaker. There's bills certainly to restudy Chapter 70. I would say there seems to be gelling belief across the board that the Student Opportunity Act did not solve all the problems. And it's way huge, way bigger than that, but ultimately that's an important acknowledgement so that we can study this and find a solution moving forward. And there seems to be some appetite to put some one-time funds. You know, we're a minimum aid district. We've talked about this for decades, it feels like. As a minimum aid district, we get the minimum per pupil, so that in years past, it started as 30, it's gone as high as 104 for the current year. This year, it started at 75 per pupil. There's talk about it going at least to the 104, if not higher. And so that would help close that $350,000 gap. There's some curriculum implementation. That way we had a plan for next year that we could delay a year for science materials. So that's the net increase in spending is $2.45 million. And that is reflective of those reductions, the roughly $1.3 million in reductions or anticipated savings on page 10. Just to clarify, because people are trying to add up the 2.45 million with the number at the top of page 11, that shows 2.29 million. The budget for fiscal 25 was adjusted by $159,544 because we had received additional Chapter 70. As I mentioned, it went up to 104 this year. We received that money in the fall adjusted budget. The committee assumed that new revenue and then moved it into stabilization. We used over 200,000 the past year. We had this discussion in the fall. We moved over 200,000 out of stabilization last year. Roofs, walls leaking, mostly water. It was all about water last year at the high school campus. And so we're close to $250,000 over on our maintenance. Pulled that out of stabilization, which is what we're supposed to do, right? That is the mechanism. And this replaced some of that money. It replaced 159 of the roughly $250,000 we took out. So that creates a false increase in the adjusted budget and then a false expenditure. Both come out. So the net effect is zero, but it does change the number. The actual increase in spending on the work we're doing is $2.45 million compared to last year. I'm sorry, compared to the current year. I'm going to stop there. I feel like that kind of is the nuts and bolts. You have the assessment page, you have the enrollments. We've talked about the impacts. You've got the assessments there. Roughly 533, or a 4.4% increase to Newbury, 949, or a little over 7% increase for Rowley, and a $651,000 increase, or just a touch over 4% for Salisbury. Let me pause there. Questions?
No, we're going to hold the question.
Do not ask any questions.
I have, can I ask you something? Yeah.
Go ahead, do you want to go first?
Yes. I have here the letter from Rowley. Attached to the agenda, you will also find a letter from Rowley Select Board and Finance Committee chairs sent to the district on Tuesday, March 11th, the day prior to the vote. First, I want to note that this was very tough timing. As I always say at our DCC meetings, is that we have to have open and honest conversations. We're here to hear those conversations. I believe that over the years, we've tried very, very hard to have those open and honest conversations, to try to build relationships with the towns. I understand that the Rowley joint meeting was on Monday night, the 10th, but the school committee provided final guidance to the administration on March 5th. Because it takes a lot of time to produce such substantial documentation for the final vote, I want to ask all the boards, if it is at all possible, to bring up discussions, which would be my preferred option at DCC meetings, or if you feel necessary, provide in writing anything like this earlier in the process. The close timing to both the scheduled vote and the deadline eliminated any possibility of setting up an interim DCC for a full discussion or a joint meeting for the board to ask clarifying questions about the letter's content prior to the vote. Unfortunately, in this meeting, I would ask the representatives from Rowley to talk about this letter. Specifically, in my opinion,
Sorry, I stole your copy. There went around the table.
wow.
I didn't think to leave one for you, sorry.
Especially, which, number one, I didn't hear this when I was watching the Rowley town meeting. With the town now in this predicament, our thoughts about supporting the Triton school building project is altered. Any consideration of supporting this project on our part will require a change of budget policy on your part. That factors in limitations of proposed Proposition 2.5 enrollment and staff levels that are comparable to other regional districts. At no time in any DCC meeting, with every single DCC meeting that we spoke about the building project, was that ever spoke about. So to me, this is pretty much an ultimatum. So I would like members of Rowley to please at least express what the intent of that is.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. We had mentioned in previous meetings that we were looking to do an override and that it potentially could impact the school building project if we had to do an override 2 years in a row.
Can I ask, at the joint meeting, did members have a copy of this letter?
No.
So when I was, I'm going to go with Linda here. When I was listening to the meeting, I didn't hear anything about that last paragraph mentioned. Did members who voted for it know that that was going to be in the letter?
I think, well, we had been meeting with the FinCom.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the discussions had taken place. I mean, we have members from the FinCom here if they want to address that.
I'm just curious if, sorry, I'll rephrase the question. So when watching the meeting, right, and then receiving the letter, that last paragraph didn't appear to be part of what was discussed and agreed upon in the meeting. So I'm just curious if members were aware that that was going to be included in there when they made that vote.
There was a verbal discussion on it. There was nothing in writing, okay, at the meeting, but the general consensus was that to proceed with a letter detailing or putting in writing the consensus that we could not afford the budget as it presently stands.
But we're asking about the conversation that would have taken place to include that last paragraph that seemed, like Linda said, seems like an ultimatum to the school committee that if we don't get in line, that you will not support the building, the building construction or repairs.
Nothing was said about if you don't get in line, then we won't support it.
It says,
Right there in the last paragraph.
our thoughts about supporting the Triton School Building Project is altered. So to me, I read that as, we don't support it anymore. Maybe I'm wrong.
That wasn't my intention or Dennis Roy's. It was that we think because we're concerned about having to have 2 overrides, potentially, so it's going to be a stretch to get to an override for the building project. I'm not saying that it's definitely not going to happen. I never said that.
So do you mean the citizens?
Yes.
Okay, then maybe I took that wrong.
No, well, any consideration of supporting this project.
Maybe altered.
No. Any consideration of supporting this project on our part will require a change of budget policy on your part. That factors in limitate, so right there, you're giving ultimatums right there in this letter, which is to me, Christine, your name is on it.
Yes, that's correct.
So to me, that whole paragraph, I mean, I don't want to keep hashing it out here, but I'd like to.
Linda, it's not a threat, but it's a possibility that it may not happen.
I know, but.
Financially, from a financial standpoint.
Right. But I think it's the people of your towns have to make that decision.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This right here is already, and please excuse me, I say at our meetings that if you're going to be negative towards the schools, that will absolutely fall to your constituents. And if we're negative about the towns, of course it's going to be negative to our towns. I explicitly said that we have to stand together and go to the towns to explain things. And I'm sorry, but that meeting Monday where we don't listen, where we don't care, that hurts me to the core. And by every line item that we go through, we have 3 subcommittees that delve into so much stuff. I don't want to put this on you, but Rowley has to take ownership.
Linda, there were comments made by some school committee members as well that were quite hurtful to the town of Raleigh as well. And I'm not saying it's not tit for tat, but there were comments made at the school committee meeting before your last one that we need to dig deeper. I don't trust the town.
I watched it a couple times. I didn't hear that. If that happened, then.
I don't want to finger point because I thought we were here to.
No, I'm just saying is that we as the school and the 3 towns have to stand together. And like I've said, I will, in fact, at this meeting, I want to move for us to stand together, and it doesn't have to be at the Rowley or Newbury or Salisbury Town of Aging. That isn't what I was saying. I was trying to make it most convenient for those people to be able to get to the buildings, but they could be at the library, anything, where we can have a forum with the towns to let them understand the situation. And that's what I've always said, that we should stand together and have that so that people understand the challenges that we're all having. It isn't just Rowley having challenges. Newbury has challenges. Salisbury has challenges. The school committee has challenges. The state has challenges. We have to stand together to express these challenges and let the people decide what they want.
I think the nerve button is when you have situations where you talk about overrides, like 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. I mean, I know there's not much we can really, there's a lot of costs that you can't, we're in a bind situation, we can't really move from them. We're paying like 25, 30, 40% more than the other two towns for assessments and stuff.
But we don't
So
control
what
that.
what?
So that's what is really hard for us, because we don't control that. So when the MLC came out, first thing I said, well, I'm not gonna say what the first thing I said was, but we're screwed. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have power. One town's taking the burden. It's not us. We wanted to do an alternate
it's tough.
assessment. No one wanted it. Or two towns didn't want it, excuse me. Excuse me.
I would have stopped it, forget that.
But I would like to,
But we have to let our residents know why we're gonna need an override. So
absolutely.
you say go out there united. I don't want to have to tell people we're having an override, let alone 2 years in a row. We're having an override because of the budget.
Right, but it isn't
It's
all on the
because of the
school.
budget.
But it isn't all because of the
Right, but-
school.
But it's a huge part of it.
It's a
And that's
huge
what we're
part of
gonna
all
tell
three
people.
towns.
Because that's what the truth is. We're not having an override because, we want to, build a new town hall or something like that. We're having an override because of the school budget.
I think it's important to note that this letter implies that the school budget is a level services budget. It's over $1 million of cuts from a level services budget, so when you point the finger at the budget and say that, that fact needs to be changed.
So I'd ask everybody to step back at this point, because I feel like we've lost the we are boards at this table, right? And we're getting back to we are individuals at this table. And honestly, I say this every time because somebody's like, well, you're the school committee. And I'm like, I am one of 9 people on the school committee. My singular vote and what I say at meetings, honestly, like, I could be speaking into the wind sometimes, and it doesn't matter. I have been on the wrong end of many 8-1 votes. I was on the other end of an 8-1 vote just at the last meeting, right? What we all individually say doesn't matter. It's what our boards vote to do. So I guess my concern with this letter was, A, that it did feel like an ultimatum coming at us, but also the way that parents are perceiving this is not good. It is, in fact, they're seeing it as, I don't know how to put this, like, in a PC sort of way, but they're seeing this as the town either wants us to have teachers or the town wants us to have a new building for our kids to go to middle school and high school in, but you can't have both. That's the conversations that I've been having with parents when they've seen that letter and heard a lot of those conversations. And I'm concerned about that because, I mean, if there are going to be overrides, I want them to pass, right? It's disastrous if they don't pass, and I'm concerned. So I would just urge the boards to somehow, I don't know what the reaction to that is, but I think it needs to be clarified if you can, because I'm concerned about the effects that it could have.
I think we should identify those particular budget buses that don't, that you can't really, that make up a good portion of the budget. And if those are identified, and you said, well, see, look at this the special needs, look at how much it costs, look at, busing, transportation, push those things out and let the people know that those are the items that we can't really do too much about, I mean, that's what I think we should do, just, be transparent and let people know, that this is, that there's not all this fluff money that we have, and, it's, we're, like, the towns are back to the corner, they can't have much, of their own say, it's just a tough situation.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I can say, because I sat in on a subcommittee meeting, at the subcommittee level, the school committee is already talking about what we can do within state ethics guidelines. So what can you put out there that's, impartial information, because that's all the district can put out. But how do you sort of spread the word that a vote is going to happen, right? What information do you really need to provide to people, and how can we get it to people? How can we, to Linda's point, get out into the community and have these conversations where it's sort of open and, it's impartial. It's not saying yes or no. It's saying this is the situation that is sort of driven us to the point of this vote. You need to know the background, right?
Right, we can give a presentation on what our budget is and why it is that, And we are trying to reduce special education by putting programs in to make sure that our students stay. I think the district has done an exceptional job we have 93 students that are remaining in our district in those programs. That would cost, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a piece. So, the district has done great things to keep that stuff in-house.
Most of the problem that it's always been is a you versus us attitude that the people have, and that the budget is being shoved on the 3 towns as opposed to a cooperative effort of, we'll say, a selectmen's school committee joint meeting where you outline the major expenses, why you can't cut back on special ed teachers, why you need more with a diminishing student population. The people need to understand that.
Isn't that the meeting we're at now?
That's what I was like.
Well, yeah, and I was just thinking,
no.
we talk about it in every meeting we
Isn't
have
this
since
why
starting
we're
in
here?
December. We talk about it for 3 months every year.
But
We
you
talk
don't
about it at
talk to the
DCC, we talk
towns.
about it at, we offer and we keep getting turned down. We keep offering to go to the towns and have these meetings.
I'm sorry, are you
And
representing the
we're
town?
trying to get them on the calendar, and we keep getting turned down. Last year, Linda and I and Brian did go to that joint meeting. If I had realized that there would be a discussion about Triton, I would have been there. I look at all the agendas. I didn't realize it was going to be discussed because there were a large number, there was a list of budgets that were going to be discussed that night, and Triton wasn't on there. Whittier was. So I thought if it was going to include Triton, that Triton would have been listed as well. That's my bad. I have a conflict on Monday night. I would have cleared it if I had known. I didn't know.
Narissa, we didn't discuss the Triton budget because we didn't have the exact final number yet because you hadn't had your meeting till Wednesday. Last week you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, half the meeting discussed Triton, it felt like.
In terms of we didn't have a number, I thought that's what you were just referring to.
Oh, I mean, I don't know what exactly was behind the agenda because I can't see the backup materials, right? All I can see is that bulleted list, but that bulleted list didn't include Triton. So I didn't know that there was going to be a discussion, and then there ended up being an extensive discussion.
I can speak for Salisbury. You guys are very clear with us financially. It's not my fault that, others don't understand the regional agreement, but after watching your guys' meeting, with all due respect, you guys don't understand the regional agreement. That's your biggest problem.
Do you think, when we had an override in 2018, we had meetings in the library, and so we did do a lot of that where we provided education to community people, so that was helpful. When we were having an override in 2018, because Salisbury had many, many years of having a much larger assessment than other towns. Up until the last 3 years, it was typically Salisbury that had the largest increase. So we had to get out and provide that education. But the other component of it was that it trickles down. So I think in our meetings, we had positive discussions, and so the trickle down. And of course, Larry, you're right, there are always going to be some people that don't understand it 100%. But as elected officials, it's my job to try to explain it and not hop on the board of, yes, it's just a school, and it's their 51% of our budget did this, that's why we have to have an override.
to at least slow down and say, instead of but, say and. So kind of, you know, yes, we have this, and we have this, and this is why. And I think that it feels like that there's a negativity starting right at the beginning, so there won't be buy-in. So, and it was something we had to go through in 2018. All of the select board had to get on the same page of being able to say the same thing and trying to explain it to people. So one, they could understand it, and two, they could go out and vote and pass the override, because that was, I mean, we hadn't passed it. It's $800,000 that year, right? Neil, wasn't it about what the override was in 2018? So we had to get out there to get people to buy in, and we had to have a positive flavor to it.
Yes, and, you know, we rally even have problems when we have, we'll say, a town meeting the week before. We have a preliminary meeting where we invite the whole town to come in and voice their questions and opinions there. We have every department head there. So it's a unified front of, you know, we're here for your questions. Hit us with it.
Yeah, and we had it even before
you know,
that.
5 people show up.
Yeah, no, I hear
Okay.
you. I hear you, that we all get
Do you have
that.
any representative from the school when you do that?
Pardon?
Is there any representative from the school when you do that?
No, but there can be.
I just think that's your largest budget item of all 3 towns. It's, maybe they can help understand, because you just repeated again that student population is going down, but again, I'll repeat to you, the student population is going down in Salisbury. You guys are gaining interest, or you're gaining in your school enrollment. That's why you keep saying, and all you guys said it, student population is going down. Well, Salisbury is going to get that gain, not you, not Raleigh. It's a part of the regional agreement. You guys are gaining
Right.
in stock
No,
in Triton.
I agree
But
with you.
your whole board stuck on it for like 15 minutes about it. And you guys keep saying it. It's very frustrating. I come here in good faith. We all should understand what we're talking about, Larry. You keep saying it. You're wrong. You guys are gaining in value or stock, however you want to put it, in Triton. That's why your bill's going up. That's one of the reasons.
We realize that. The selectmen realize that, you know, because of the regional agreement and things like that, that our assessment goes up. What we have to do is convey that to the people.
Well, you don't convey it when your whole entire finance board, who's supposed to be in charge of your finances in your town, are saying the same exact thing. I don't understand why it's going up when the students are going down. Your finance board should understand the regional agreement and say, the reason why it's going up some, if we can't claim that, that's on Salisbury.
The finance board does understand why it's going up. The people don't.
Well, what can we do to change that?
I was just gonna say, how do we
Because
help?
if you, instead of
Kelly
a
will come and talk to us.
them versus us,
But we can,
that you have a meeting with the town selectmen and the school people, like we're doing right here. We're all together. We're all one. We're unified.
It doesn't feel like it, though, to be honest with you. When we hear comments, with all due respect, Mike, that we don't understand the regional
You don't.
agreement.
I listened to your whole board, guys. I want to work with you.
I thought we were going to be respectful and not point fingers this
I'm
evening.
not. I'm not bent pointing fingers.
Well-
I'm trying to,
Maybe just read.
I think we just all have to work together
yes.
and understand what, if, like I'm trying to say, Larry, is we should get a forum together, and the school and the towns, I've been saying that for a few DCC meetings, and let's advertise it in the paper, let's advertise it at PTAs or the schools, we'll put it out, and have us all sit there and explain what the school budget is, and explain the town's, and like I
Right,
said,
I
and then
agree
say-
with you.
and then
And
saying,
if we sat together as a group, okay, that at least the people that come or turn on their TV and watch what's going on, see that the Rowley Selectmen and Finance Committee are hand in hand with the Triton School Committee.
But I mean, we came to a joint meeting last year. So I'm just trying to say that, and we're willing to have come this year and speak. There's never been a time that.
Linda and I don't say no.
Right.
I'll just say that, like.
Right.
I mean, I don't ever want to
But it's one
say.
thing to have the school committee sitting in the audience, and another
No, we
one.
spoke at last year's
Yeah.
joint
They
meeting.
came,
Brian.
they came and spoke,
Do you-
and
I mean,
and
is it-
Kelly's our rep, so.
No, so that's all I'm
she can
saying
do a
is
presentation.
this isn't an attack for Rowley, but
No.
Rowley has to stop attacking the school. We have to be together and not attacking each other. We have to be bringing everything to the.
I'm not attacking the
No,
school.
I didn't say that.
I think we're all talking about the same topic, and the same topic is how do we
Right.
respectfully on all our boards get information out fairly to the correct people. And I think we all, I'm listening around the table, I'm very naive and everyone will tell you that I live in Candyland. But I also will firmly say that we all have the same problem. It's hard for me, sitting on the school committee, to talk to Newbury, Rowley, and Salisbury parents without being like, just vote for the school. I have to stop myself and say, here are the meetings, here's the information, I can answer questions, and we just would really like you to, I've said this so many times this week, it's burned in my brain, I just really want you to get out to your town meetings and vote, and I would really just like you to get to the polls and vote and choose your priorities as a town. So what I'm hearing around here is that we all want the financial health of our towns and the financial health of the district to align, and we all want to get information out. I think where the disagreement's coming from is the best way to do it, and it's hard because we're all sitting on our boards and our subcommittees, and we're all listening to each other's boards and subcommittees in like a vacuum, where we have like one agenda item that we're like hammering in that moment, and we need to be because that's the point of why we're there, and then we leave and we kind of have to figure out a way to make it so that as we're hammering those details out, that we are all, I do it occasionally where I forget, I'm sitting on the school committee board and I'll be hammering something and be like, this is right, and then I'll walk out of it and face everything else and be like, wow, I really should have thought about somebody else's point of view, or I really should have kind of taken in more information. So to move forward, I would really like to maybe change it and go back to kind of what everyone's saying is, how do we all get the same information out to the correct people in our towns from the different positions that we have to sit in? And yes, going to each other's board meetings, going to each other's town select board meetings and having a say, or having, I know Kelly or Rowley to go there. Yeah. I know Linda and Narissa definitely don't say no to a meeting. I honestly don't know how they do it, but they don't say no to going to a meeting or a board. I have no problem. I'm going to throw Matt under the bus because he's sitting next to me. But I think if we can start physically attending each other's meetings when Triton or Newbury or Rowley or any of those budget type items that overlap come up, we can probably eliminate a lot of the miscommunication that comes when we meet monthly around this table. And I don't know if that's Caitlin living in Candyland or if that's like a true thing. But I would really like to see more of us physically going to each other's boards, even if it's not for our towns, so that we don't kind of get in our heads and stay in a vacuum while we're in our town halls. I don't know if that helps, but I think that's probably the best way forward. Is that what you were aiming for?
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Yeah, I think it has to be bigger than that, because a lot of people don't watch the meetings,
Yeah, no, they
unfortunately.
don't. I think it's where you're
As we
talking
found out
about
recently, where they were like,
getting
oh, you were
out,
discussing
to
that?
the community. I think the big
Right?
piece is the community.
Okay, I can't solve all the problems in Candyland.
A lot of it, yeah, no, a lot about the rest of the Candyland community, right?
Thank you.
No, I hate to say, I think it's the community, like you
Yeah.
were saying.
And they're not getting the information. I am standing at pickup and wow.
Like, how do we set up something at the library? For
At Salisbury?
we just call Terry and say we're saying something up at the community meeting?
Is that how?
I mean,
we
that's
do
what
it?
we did the last time. And to your point, you may still get 5 people, but if you got 5 people that came to that, then they're probably gonna talk to 5 people. And at least, you're not gonna reach everyone, but at least you're gonna
Right, but I
start a
mean, at least we
conversation.
try.
Yeah.
And that's the best we can do.
100%.
Because, at least in Raleigh, we have 4 or 5 other departments that are yelling and screaming for more funding
Yeah.
and throwing up the, Armageddon flag type of a thing. So when the school committee or when the school budget is presented, it's like, oh yeah, we've heard that before. So we have to somehow get their attention and show them why special ed is more important than 2 or 3 firemen.
So I would.
That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're
I
saying.
get your point, Larry, though. But
Yeah.
I would recommend it
Thank you.
happen prior to that meeting, because you know
Oh,
what?
yes.
Again, social worker, I get in a meeting with all numbers, and I'm done within 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, looks good, can we move on and talk about, because, so I think it needs to be beforehand, not in that, because you're right, then everybody's Armageddon, like, everyone's like, but we're more important. No, we're more important. We want to get before that to be able to educate people
To explain the
around,
numbers.
right.
Yeah.
Right, that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
we were looking for several years, give us a preliminary budget or something that we can go to the people and say, hey, this is, within 5% of what it is. Hey, Raleigh, be prepared. We're gonna get hit with $1 million increase.
But I still think it needs to be explained just now. I
Oh,
look
sure.
at just, do you know what I mean? I look at just in the year that I've been on this, the finance subcommittee, all that I've learned. I came into this as an educator, as a parent, but all that I have learned in this last year, the better understanding I have that I did not have, and that I just feel like I was missing before coming here. And I still don't feel that just giving out a number is going to make the me of a year ago necessarily be like, oh, okay. I think, like we're saying, we need to get out there and explain the special ed, these are numbers that we don't make up. We can't change them. This is just it. I feel like I think the year before me is just these were just numbers that came out of nowhere. They're not. We can't do anything about it. And I think there are too many people in the public that don't understand that. And we can share numbers till the cows come home. But I think if we don't get out there and really explain, I have just learned with Brian and Narissa, and just being in these meetings that I sit in, and really diving into it. I now, but that's after a year of meetings. That's not showing up to a town hall meeting or tossing out a number. So I don't know, I beg to differ. I think there's got to be something more.
I think you also came in with an edge, right? Because when part of the special ed conversation, right, is saying to someone sometimes, this student to stay in our district, which is the least expensive place to
Yes.
have the student, and the best thing for the student as well, more importantly perhaps, is to have one person assigned to them during the entire school day. And that's a legal requirement, right? Once they are.
Can't do anything
yeah.
about it. IEPs are legally bound.
So it's not like we can say,
no, we
cut
just
that
cut
person.
cut a position, because then
Right.
we're going against the law. Yeah.
Can I just say one other thing too, Larry, because something you said, about wanting to know the number beforehand. I'm going to beat a dead horse, okay? I know it's dead, but just to remind people, an alternative assessment would have given you exactly that, numbers back in November. An alternative assessment would have been part of a solution of the argument that we're having right now. So an alternative assessment would have helped us not only know the numbers beforehand, Raleigh would not have felt the pain such the increase as they're feeling this year. And it's what we kept saying after every alternative assessment meeting that we had, that's what we would bring back to everybody. And in September, Raleigh and Newbury voted to call it a dead horse. And Salisbury said, no, let's still have a conversation. So, not to bring up that dead horse again, but this
And we
wouldn't be
we also had that conversation that Salisbury, we would probably get the highest assessment this year. No one in Raleigh needed help. And we were willing to, $1,000, $100,000, and $200,000, we probably would have got hit pretty hard because the rolling average. We knew we would probably be subsidizing a little bit, but we knew if we stood in our hand, one day it might be reciprocal, but.
minimum contribution is what killed Raleigh this year, and that we wouldn't have had that part of our equation if we had had an alternative assessment.
Yeah.
Or at least that was the discussion. I mean,
So is that still something that could come back?
We should.
I'm not, I don't know, 'cause I
gone
wasn't,
after
I
May
wasn't part
12th,
of that,
so,
like,
yeah.
subcommittee, so I don't know what happened there, so I know it from the DCC standpoint when we get updates. So I didn't know if now, like, things have definitely changed, all of our financial situations have changed. I mean, this year has been, for everybody, everyone's financial situations have changed, not just Raleigh's, everybody's. So I don't know with that new information, and then you're looking at federally what's going on, state what's going on. This is a very different situation than even in September, right? So would that be something that could come back to the table given all of that new information, or is it like legit a dead horse that needs
It
to be
has to
buried?
be.
I don't actually know if that's why I'm asking.
It has to be the boards.
The boards have to decide, okay.
Yeah,
So it's
because
never, it's not, like, it's dead, but it hasn't like moved on to the afterlife. It could come back to life.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question.
Well,
Running hope over there.
I don't hope, I just like to keep all options on the table when possible.
Because
Like,
Ronnie, if
it's
the
there,
other
it's there.
boards decide, you're back.
Ronnie, welcome back. Sorry.
No, but I mean, yes, I said it was a dead horse, in my opinion, and I'm exiting out, right? So this is somebody who's saying.
Say it
I
again,
would
where are
go
you going?
forward, right. That I would highly recommend, it's not the solution for this year, I would highly recommend you go back and have those conversations because I mean, I don't know what it would have looked differently. Nurse, I don't know if you looked at that, but it would not have been, it would have been an increase by everybody, but it would have been a little bit more probable,
Yeah.
and you would have known it in November.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of the conversation that we had all along, right? Is that there are so many things that an alternative assessment can do for you, but it can't do all of the things. So you need to sort of pick and choose what you want. And when the alt assessment group was meeting, something that was really highly prized was keeping the assessment simple, which makes it hard to also make it predictable and level off the kind of spikes and valleys that the different towns feel through the assessments. The assessment formula that we worked on, which was the simplest one, wasn't a good solution for making it predictable and evening it off necessarily, right? But if you look at something that's more biased in that direction, I guess, that's intentional towards having that effect, you could probably get there, or you could get there, but it's not going to be as simple.
Right, we looked at the
So.
simplest one as what we were going
Yes.
with, a 5-year, 3-year rolling. But I
Yes.
mean, literally, Marissa did an amazing job coming up with all over the state, the alternative assessments. And there's some throwing the kitchen sink and the
Oh, yeah.
bathroom toilet, so.
Yeah, 4 paragraphs long, right, to describe how it works,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of it, is it's open. Because, and we kept saying, hey, I kept saying, it's Salisbury right now that would benefit from it 3 years ago. This year it would have been Raleigh that benefited from it. And we predicted that. We said that it's going to be this ebb and flow, that it had been, when we looked at, when Erica did the historical numbers, we looked at how much less Salisbury would have paid through all those years, and the minute people saw that, they're like, yeah, no one's going to buy into it. They're like, tides will turn. They've turned.
One of the biggest problems that I see was that everyone agreed that the alternative assessment would work, but 1 or 2 of the 3 towns would never approve it. We never tried we as a group didn't go back to our towns and say, you don't like the school assessment? Here's the alternative. Support
Salisbury
it.
did do that. Salisbury voted yes to continue to do that.
To
Yeah, I
have,
mean-
to have the big town meeting, I think, having the vote.
Yeah, but if we agreed and we could get the other two towns agree, we probably would have brought it to our town meeting.
Yeah.
We're willing to try.
It never got tested in a town meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Budget vote. Yes, you're right. And
I think we're really gonna get tested now, if ever, because, you know, we're in a situation which we could very well rally, not want to go forward because you're talking about a new school, and you're talking about the Triton budget, operating budget. So if there's a time whenever we need everybody to be together, like on the assessment thing, is now, because I think we're gonna have a tough time, coming up for the next, when we have a meeting, it's gonna be tough for people to want to say, okay, well, you're gonna get a new school and you're getting the operating budget, it's not gonna be easy. It's, so this, we'll see, how it's gonna turn out, but I think there's gonna be problems. And that's why the assessment should be able to be agreed on by people here, because, every town's gonna have this situation come up at some point in time, and we should all be, together as one. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that it looks at, so where it would have been tested, right? Because Salisbury would have had to pay more than, let's say this year, that there was an alternative assessment. I'm walking in Candyland right now, right? So, if there was an alternative assessment, Salisbury would have had to pay more than what our assessment is right now. It would, and if we had pushback from, other people in the town, like, oh, wait a minute, why are we paying more when we could have paid less? The reality was, well, because a town, if the override doesn't pass in two towns, Salisbury people don't want to have $1 million in cut, because that's 20, when I watched the school committee, it was potentially 20 teacher positions. Our people would, our residents, I would hope, would say, yeah, okay, we are going to have to pay $100,000 more than we would have, but it's worth having 20 kids be cut from, 20 teachers being cut from the budget. So I think it's all about providing that education and helping people understand.
Totally agree with you.
And that's work that we have to do as the elected officials.
And to stay in Candyland, like, we have to try another way, because the way we've been doing this is not working. If we're sitting around this table tonight and it's this much discussion, then I need to say we need to try another way, because I don't think there's anyone at this table that wants to make a decision in their town that then negatively impacts one or two other towns. There's nobody at this table, and I'm not in Candyland when I say that, I am in reality. There's not one human being at this table that wants to make a decision or be part of a decision that harms another town, or that makes a decision that negatively impacts a school that would then impact two other towns' ability to run their elementary schools, because we're all one. So every one of our decisions counts. So I guess my thing is, how do we try another way? Because we've kind of gone around and around, and we agree, some things just aren't working. But it all comes down to education, and how do we get that message out to all of our towns that, you're right, if Rowley passes the budget and Newbury and Salisbury do not, that impacts all three towns. That our voters, even if they were for it, if it does not pass in two towns, then the budget gets negatively impacted for Triton, and then there are ways that Triton needs to cut back, so students then get impacted. And I think that's the missing piece for a lot of our towns. When I talk to parents and say, we need two towns to vote the budget in, they're like, well, no. And the answer is, yes, we need to support Rowley, and we need to support Newbury, and we need to support Salisbury, because we need all three towns for a budget to work.
We should pretend it's all one.
Well, that's the point.
In reality, the bottom line is, so we should all get together, and I proposed before with the assessment that if Rowley's budget increase was more than Salisbury and Newbury together, then I think there should be 25% should be kicked in by Newbury, and another 25% by Salisbury, and that would make up some of the big hit that Raleigh took. You know, if we don't, I mean, I'm not saying that we should, you know, I think anytime when there's a situation that comes up like that, I think that's when everybody should be all in, because it's.
I think we should be all in for each other
But I'm
the
saying,
entire time.
you know, how could, logically speaking, if Raleigh has more than double what Salisbury and Newbury have, you know, I think anybody would realize that, you know, there should be some type of stopgap relief or something based on that. You know?
And it's what we were saying 6 years ago, because it happened in Salisbury.
Yeah.
And when it was happening to us, that's when nobody wanted to come to the table. So again, it's not happened to us this year, and we're still willing to come to the table. We still see the benefit of it because it is an entire, I mean, I don't want to lose 20 teachers. That hurts our students, without a doubt. There's no question, and I get Raleigh's point, but 20 teachers, that's devastating to a school.
I think it's worth adding that would not be clawed back for probably a decade.
Oh, without a
and
doubt.
would tank property values across all
Without a
three
doubt.
towns.
And I don't know the ends, because when you have, I hate to tell people this, I've been saying it with the mental health thing, that you have 20 teachers cut, your out-of-district numbers go through the roof because you won't be able, I mean, when you have classrooms of more than 25, and I'm sorry, it's not 33, that is not the national level, just as an FYI on that one. If you have even 25, my God, come spend a day with me. If one of my students is in a classroom with 25 kids, nobody in that classroom is learning, and then you have more kids on IEPs, you have more kids going out of district, which in essence cost more money because it's a legal document, an IEP. The minute you get put on an IEP, the minute your team says they need to go out of district, because probably lawyers have been involved, it's costing you now more money. So there would, it not only for a couple of years, that's why it would be so long, because it'd be so many kids that have to go out of district.
And we're talking about just the students. You eliminate 20 educators in any form. I pick a type of educator and eliminate 5 from each category that you can think of. That impacts the students, yes. The remaining educators do not have the bandwidth to take on, because the paperwork for one IEP, the paperwork for a 504, and the paperwork for a quote-unquote student without paperwork attached to them, parent emails, phone calls, office referrals, because even if you have an angelic human being, 25 of their closest friends sitting within 2 feet of them, 6 hours a day, with one educator and no support staff to be seen, that angelic human is going to take an opportunity to do things. And that's just the nature. This is the nature.
I love the show.
And so now you have office referrals, so now you have your, I mean, it is a domino effect that I don't want to ignore, because we talk a lot about our students, but what happens to our remaining educators, and then do they stay? Does the knowledge they have stay? But beyond all that, because that's going down a very uncandyland-like road for myself. So I want to bring it back, like, how do we find another way so that we get the correct information to the correct people, so that our town people, our humans, can get to the polls, get to town meeting, and choose their priorities, so that we as elected officials can move forward. Like, that's the process that needs to go forth. So going back to, how do we get the citizens where they need to be to learn information, vote, choose their priorities, so that we as elected officials can then, like, do the things.
I mean, the Salisbury Library, one day you can come to the Salisbury Library, we could do, when's the last time that we did the whole, you guys did a horse and pony show, you went on, everybody?
So we've done it online the last few years.
It was before COVID.
We went to Newbury, no, we went to Newbury last year, right?
I did not, don't.
The Newbury Fire Station, not Newbury Fire.
Oh, no, we did. You
We
did go somewhere.
Yeah, and you did
I
the
went
stuff
somewhere.
online to make sure that people that couldn't get physically to the building, because we have a better response for school committee stuff online than we do with people showing up to a physical meeting, that they held sessions, like town hall sessions too, over the last few years.
Okay. Well, we're gonna be doing drop-in sessions again this year.
So can I ask, is there interest in doing sitting side-by-side sessions, right? I mean, I think if we're talking about selling this as if Rowley needs an override, if it's the schools, then it's our, part to sit there with you and say, here's the reason why, so that you can be supported, right? I mean, so it could be side-by-side, us, we, going town to town. I mean, amazing to have this group do a roadshow, right? And actually have town officials in each town, like we're Triton, right? This is Triton right here. So I just throw that out as I've been quiet.
So you would like to take this
dog and pony show on
the road?
I don't know, we have a town meeting in like a month.
Brian, that is
Sherry
a
doesn't
lot
want to
of
sit next to me
space.
again. So, no, but I think, or even if it's, right, school committee, myself with Rowley officials, school committee, myself with Salisbury officials, school committee, myself with Newbury officials, to show the, right,
Exactly.
At this point, it's a united front, particularly Newbury and Rowley, where there is an override on the table. And if that's on us to help sell, maybe we want to be standing side by side with you, because
I mean, is it
your
something that
towns are our
can be
towns.
organized at the elementary schools, a larger space for me able to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, I just think if I'm on the board of trustees at the library, I could talk to them, I just don't know how much room we have there. They're kind of limited, but, in the Pine Grove, like, is that something? I don't know. Is there time?
Yeah, I love the ambitious thought of
I know.
overfilling a space.
I know.
Yeah, I guess I would say.
Just us.
Yeah, I mean.
It might be a little bit higher than Larry's number, but not much.
Not a whole lot of meeting space at the library.
Well, I think I would say from the town perspective, what makes the most sense
For town.
for the town, right? So it's not, we have our school parent audience, but if this is a combined audience, where in town do you all think it makes the most sense?
For Rowley, I think it would be the town hall, the auditorium.
Yeah.
Only
Upstairs.
because
That
we
would be
keep
better,
hearing, our last 2 town meetings, we're at Pine Grove, and we're constantly getting complaints about how horrible the acoustics in the audio system
Yeah,
was.
that's,
So,
yeah, it is.
I mean, we don't know why, I
Yeah.
mean, but it's,
Do you have an elevator?
Yes.
it's actually a lift.
Ooh,
It's an
I'm just
elevator.
making sure that everybody can
It's an
get it.
elevator.
You're like, it's a lift.
It's a little old fashioned, but it gets you to the second floor.
Gets the job done.
Yeah.
Okay, for real, is it hand cranked?
I'll say, can you throw that in the override? It should be.
I told you before.
Brian's
Trying to tell you that.
To Brian's point about explaining, like, for example, Rowley's override is just not for Triton. There'll be other things in there for the town. So we're not doing a separate override for Triton and a separate one, it's a combined override. So to explain the different portions makes sense.
Yeah.
And everything you guys
Happy
are
to do
asking
it.
for is very reasonable.
I don't think
Just gotta get past the people.
asking people to come to us is enough. I personally, I'm not a stranger to using social media. I didn't want to use social media because everybody was reading the same thing from the letter, but I wanted to make sure that it was right because I was worried about the discrepancy. Like, we can use social media, right? We can do door knocking. We have many, many ways to do outreach that we just need to use, I think.
Taking whatever presentation and making sure it's playing on the PIG channels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 24/7.
Well, I mean,
24/7, that's
we
a
can
lot.
use
That's a
SCTV,
lot of
I don't know.
there's a lot, but we can
You really want to see
What's it in
yourself out
competition
there.
with?
Brian,
Use you our
Marissa,
meetings.
I mean, and Erica and Ronnie, I mean, you guys, I was on one side when I first got on the select board, and Ronnie set me straight, I gotta admit that. Because I looked at just the differences in what each town pays as a citizen. I didn't understand the regional agreement. And then when all 4 of you guys sat me down and pretty much slapped me around a little bit on my opinions, and I learned a lot. I mean, I was the first one, Ronnie would tell you, I got in arguments with her over it saying, wow, how is it like that? And she's like, well, this is the regional agreement. So it took me a long time to understand why it happens. And I think maybe you four, I mean, you guys hold so much knowledge, don't want to see you go, but you guys sitting down and just speaking to the people and helping every board member and all of us get it out there. Because there's a lot of misconceptions of how the school gets funded.
Yes. When we had an override, we had, I don't know if you guys have this, we had a bunch of parents create.
We are Triton.
We are Triton,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
We are Triton. We are
Yeah.
Triton.
And they had even like signs, yard signs that they put up and the whole bit. So there was a lot of social media. There was also the
They
signs.
hosted
that
events.
Yeah.
And that was in what, 2018?
Yeah, yeah.
And we were in the same boat you were this year. We didn't have a choice. We were flat broke.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's,
Then we got him.
and that was, I mean, they were amazing, this group of people. They really did a lot of education and a lot of push, and it passed really without, it wasn't a difficult pass. It was 3 votes
Yeah.
for,
It was-
for the.
it was
For the
close.
ballots.
For ballots,
Yeah.
not the town meeting.
Yeah, town meeting looked nice.
Yeah.
But then we went to ballots and that got, but that tells you everything we've been saying here is that
The people that show up to the
it's,
town meeting.
it's kind of like the people that show up to town meeting aren't always the people
Yeah.
that vote. They're two different sets of humans. I know Newbury was joking that they should hold some of their things at like Mantor.
No, the
Yeah.
18th meeting, they were talking about just something with dogs on it.
Dog leash.
And everybody.
Leash law. The highest attended town meeting was about the leash law.
Yeah,
What can you do?
that was funny.
That's the truth, though.
It is. Hey,
So,
beach parking, man. You talk about beach parking, everyone's showing up.
I was gonna say, if you talk about sewer, Salisbury comes out in.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, that's another
Two,
one.
two things the Newbury Finance Committee proposed the other night that I thought you guys had some great ideas on. One was putting a calculator on the website so that people can get an estimate of what their actual tax hit would be. And I know Erica, I don't know if she's reached out, but was talking about going to the Department of Revenue to discuss having the actual number on the ballot, because one reason they were saying that often the ballot seems to fail is that it looks so open-ended, because it's just asking, can we raise taxes, but it's not saying, it's not giving that number the way town meeting does. So if those come to
On the
pass.
ballot.
Yeah.
So,
I think if we work together, you can get the parents to support it, you said signs or whatever, I think.
I think all of our PTs are strong.
Visually
And they're fired
see
up.
support for something, then they tend to almost want to be part of it more.
yeah. I was thinking logistically, Newbury Town Meeting is 5.5 weeks. Rowley Town Meeting, 6.5 weeks. Override vote in 7.5 weeks. So,
They gotta get going.
this is like, just saying, just.
There's,
Yeah.
again, our PTs
Planning-wise.
are great.
Yeah.
So
They
we should
will-
probably set up a meeting and voice it.
So we can't get involved there.
No.
They can have separate discussions.
Yep.
No, I meant set up the discussion point where we were going to, here's what the budgets look like, here's what the items are that we're looking to find, why the budget looks the way that it does, how the towns are situated as well. So the discussions that we're having, not like a meeting, but like a open forum to share the information that we're looking at. But just make sure that we're sending out those invitations, like personalized invitations to Council on Aging, personalized invitations to the PTAs, so that they can rally the members to get them to come to be able to hear. And if it's an open discussion, ask questions so that they can do that and they know that we're doing this, instead of hearing about it after and then trying to watch a video and have questions still.
I was gonna say, so separately, we talked about, I think, us, the school committee, administration, scheduling a time for a forum information session with each town, whether that's select board, finance committee, I know warrant advisory is different in Salisbury. Is that on the table, or are we talking separately, this is going to PTAs, arming them with all the information we can?
Why can't we do both?
Or is it both? Okay.
I would suggest at this point, because we only
I love the idea
did you
of
say
the-
7.5 weeks? Because that's a scary.
To the open.
5.5 for the
There's not
first
much
one.
time.
5.5 to Newbury's town
I
meeting.
think given the time frame, I would say as many points of contact and as many public appearances as one can have, because I know there are a ton of questions. I'm getting questions in places where I don't normally speak to other human beings. So like literally I got stopped in a bathroom.
I was gonna go
So
there.
I was washing my hands and they were like, did you see, and what about this? And I was like, oh, it is so nice to not know who you are, but let's have this conversation. But I think,
Keep washing.
yeah, I'm just like, and I was like, at
Keep
least they're
scrubbing.
washing their hands.
Yeah.
But I think at the same point, it speaks volumes that people want to be involved and they want to know because they're hearing things, but they really don't know how to like go about it. And that's really where we're failing as a whole group. So as many people that we can kind of put out there, because we all have different contacts, we're all in different places. You know, I'm not hanging out in the same place as Narissa is.
Market Basket, are you sure?
Not the
sure
one
we are.
Actually, technically, I am at that Market Basket a lot now.
Right.
Yikes. That says a lot about my day. But to be fair, I think getting all of us out there in different forms or fashion, and maybe with different groupings, so that you get more than just a Salisbury representative, more than just a Newbury, more than a select board, more than a school committee member, kind of together, so that they realize that there's a lot of unity here. Because I think
Are
we all
you
have
thinking of one meeting for all 3 towns or 3 separate meetings?
Oh, I'd say we just go to everybody.
I think we have to get out there.
Brian's gonna rent a bus and we're gonna
You
go.
can't just like have it
roll
in
it.
one
We don't have
town.
enough money for that.
You don't have
Right.
it.
No, Brian's gonna rent the
I
bus.
said Brian. I said Brian. I was being very specific.
Well, I was just gonna say, I
Don't
can
worry
fit
about
7 in my car.
Exactly.
Third row
Back seat
goes
if
up.
you're lucky.
Please, let's not involve buses.
All right, well, there's enough
No, we
moms
can
here
throw
with
them under
triple
the
row
bus.
seating.
We don't have any drivers.
That's right. Empty buses.
We have the
Linda
little-
can drive the
We have the
bus.
little mini buses.
Ooh, Linda can drive a bus.
Linda can drive the bus.
Yeah,
It's
we have
gonna be a book
the
from
two
Frank
Sprinter vans. I
Linda.
can drive those.
We're gonna create a book. Linda
14
can
people.
drive.
That sounds super fun, by the way.
So you're welcome.
But anyway, I think you ought to have like 3 school people that are knowledgeable on everything. I'm not going to mention names.
Then I don't say no.
Linda, Narissa, and Matt.
But I also
And-
think other representatives from the school committee
Yeah,
should also
Pauline needs to
participate.
be there.
I'll be at every meeting you want me to.
Small needs to
We need
be
to.
I mean, I
Yes.
agree,
Yeah.
the knowledge over to my right, but I feel like people need to see the other school committee members, that's just my
Yeah, but
opinion.
you also have to have
Who do you
the town representatives, i.e. select people, several of them there, so that the person that says, you know, I don't want to spend another $1 million on Triton when our police department is suffering. You know, what do I want,
Taxing the fund.
education or get shot to death? You know, it's, so you have someone from the town there that one can answer related questions, you know. No, we're not.
So, no, but
taking-
of course, what I'm thinking, Larry, is that because Sherry and I represent, we're on the DCC, we were elected by our board of selectmen to be the 2 people, that we would be there alongside with the school committee.
Yes.
I mean, it would be open
Also-
to any other board
Yeah,
members.
Finance
Do you
committee.
guys want others, because I can go. Do you want,
I
would we help?
think it would be great because we always hear, well, you know, Salisbury has more kids than us, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
But I mean, I have
You know.
weird hats, being a special education social worker, so understanding that component of it, so, I mean.
Well, that's where
without a
I
doubt.
think it would help, because I get that all the time, and we have to somehow explain to them
And-
the
and-
dynamics of how the funding happens.
and you said it at one of the meetings. You don't want to build, you don't want to raise taxes, you got
You
to
guys
pay
are
your
a tough
bills somehow.
situation, you know I've said it to you guys, you're
I
in a
know,
very tough
and-
situation.
We talked about you actually saying that, and that's exactly right.
And
Don't know what we're
I go back to the
going to
regional
be up
agreement.
against.
I was completely wrong when I thought the regional agreement was, and it's the hardest thing in the world to understand that regional agreement. Because Larry's right. People go, I don't understand that the kids are going down, you know, why don't we have less teachers, why don't we have this? Well, okay, well, Riley can feel that way, but then Newbury and Raleigh say yes, and you guys are still stuck with the budget. I don't think, even in Salisbury it happened, they don't understand how the funding actually happens. Because if you guys vote no on your override, and Newbury
Exactly.
votes yes, and Salisbury votes
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
you're really in trouble now with your services. And
Exactly.
people need to like I was talking to Sean Reardon, I said, Sean, how many times do you guys do an override? He goes, roughly what, in the historically, the report does like every 10 years, only to get caught up with all services. Because a Prop 2.5 plus growth doesn't work. If you start taking the numbers of what the police are going, the fire, the library, the school, if you start taking all the contractual agreements, you're not gonna keep up with it. And I just think that's the misconception of a lot of residents. They're like, I don't understand why the school went up $1 million. Well, do you understand that health insurance went up? Do you understand that the police, I heard you guys need a overnight fire. Everyone needs to understand, it's not just the school, it's not just the firefighters, it's just life itself. When you are home in your own bills and they're going up, the school, the town, the fire, the police, their bills are going up too. When you have to pay more for the gas, everyone has to pay more for the gas. And I just think people are very stressed, they're very strapped. All three of our communities are strapped. But at the second sense, I'll say it again, children and seniors should never know how strapped we are. Because at the end of the day, our parents did it for us, their parents did it for them. It's a bad situation that the state has put us in. And I'll say it again, be careful who you vote for statewide, because...
And I said those exact words.
I know you did.
Because I'm not...
And it's not, and Ronnie, I said it right, it's not a political thing, it's the character of the person. Are they gonna go and fight for us? Is the governor gonna fight for us? Is the lieutenant governor gonna fight for us? Are they gonna leave the money in the major cities? That's what we need to ask ourselves, because at the end of the day, what were we, 38% 10 years ago the state was paying? Now they're down to 17? At the end of the day, that lies with the governor's feet. The past, the present, and the one before that. And that's where we as a small communities have to say, okay, well, we can't fight with each other. We have to go to the citizens and say, you know what? I really don't want to pay the $1 million more either, because I have to pay that on my taxes too. Every one of you selectmen members and every one of you finance members have to do it too. It sucks.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But at the end of the day, I still have to provide an education to my children. I still need overnight fire. I still need to give my employees a 2% raise. It's the worst conversations you gotta have with some people, because you're gonna devastate some people financially.
Yes.
You 100%, we all recognize
absolutely.
that. So how do we help each other, three communities, lessen that cursor as much as possible, working together? And we have to go to the citizens. I mean, you guys know what would be, we with the Sauls would say, we're gonna pay another $100,000 more to help Raleigh out. We're gonna get...
That you'll get... Yeah.
We're gonna crucify, but at the end of the day...
That's not what you say.
No, that's not what you say.
You don't say
But at
that.
the end of the day, it's,
You say
okay,
three.
so we have 852 kids in Salisbury. Do you want them to suffer and not have a teacher?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what we, as the elected
Yes.
officials, have to lead and say, that's the reason why. Do you not want to have students, teachers for students?
That's what you say.
Yes.
And that's what we need to get away from, because it's not just one, it's all
It's not
of
a
us.
dollar figure.
It was some
And so
talk.
it's doing that where you're saying, like, if we cut 20 teachers, it's not because of, this is how the votes went, this is how this happened, and this is how, you need to explain how these things work, because a lot of people don't understand that. Let's say Newbury does not fund the budget, the cuts don't come from Newbury.
That's right.
People really don't understand. They think like, oh, well, if Salisbury doesn't fund the budget, the cuts will, that's just a Salisbury problem. And you're like,
No, it's not.
no, we're all together in this. So we need everyone to fund the budget. We need everyone to be on board as much as they can.
So
That's it.
when you had Senator Tarr and Representative Kastner here, we had them at our town also. Did you get anything out of that? Did they commit to anything?
They can't come into, especially
That's
since-
why
Did
we
they
have,
say that they were gonna,
that's why we have the additional, whatever it is,
because,
200,000 in circuit breaker transportation, assume, is in part
So Bruce
because
got that?
of what they have said. They said they believe that there's understanding now that part was only funded 57% this year and 44% last year. And it's supposed to be funded 75%. They believe that there is widespread understanding and commitment to that now. So that allowed us in here to assume the 200,000.
Assume is the word though.
It is, and we'll pay for it, right?
Show me the
We're gonna
money.
have to make those cuts if it doesn't come through.
Right.
That's, right?
So fingers crossed.
But there's confidence enough.
But I also
I
think,
expect that in the future, because the state is saying that they're like $1.3 billion down the hole, and you're not gonna see that same, any money we get now will be good, but because, not gonna be as much available.
going forward.
I think my understanding of that too, though, Narissa, was, and Brian, I think it was you who said it, like, before there were, 211 plus, I can't remember.
232 now.
232.
211 plus 21.
So that is getting bigger, so we have more elected officials who have a better, it's hurting their districts more, where before it was just us in Western Mass, and there wasn't, so it was hard to get enough of elected officials to be able to team up together to be on the same page. With now it being 232, we have more going, okay, this is unacceptable. It's hurting more people. So it's unfortunate it has to hurt more people for our elected officials to understand that, but that's the reality, so it's good.
We also were able to highlight the bills that we expect to be put into conversation to let them know which ones would help support the towns and the schools, so that hopefully they would make sure that they're advocating for those and bringing others on board to pass and identify and try and push them.
One of the other meetings, we send those bills to our senators.
One of the other big stressors for Rowley is we're still trying to pass 3A. Salisbury, Newbury already passed.
Good luck.
And
We
I'm
could have a separate
concerned.
town meeting for it.
We
We could have
have-
2 town meetings.
I'm concerned if it doesn't pass, the financial ramifications.
Well,
That's where,
You're in
that's, I
serious
don't
trouble
sleep
with
at
that.
night for that.
Well, not only.
So we're dealing with that, and I'm not complaining, I'm just bringing awareness. And Narissa, you know, we texted a conversation about this not too long ago. We need to get that passed, because if we don't, on top of everything else, if the override doesn't pass, I lose sleep at night over this. We're negotiating three contracts right now. So it's just a lot. That's a huge stressor, and there's a huge divide in our town right now with 3A, like right down the middle.
Right down the middle.
That lost by 26 votes last November.
And it's getting nasty.
So we're going to have a third
We don't know how
town
many
meeting.
different ways we have to say, we can't win this fight. The state, this is going to happen, the state's gonna come and do it for us if we don't do it. It's better to have some input.
Yep.
They won't go along with
I
it. They
feel for
don't
you guys on that.
understand, some people just don't understand that the governor is 1,000% serious. This is going to happen, whether you want it to or
Attorney
not.
General's 100%
It is going to happen.
How did the other 2 towns pass it?
How did we pass it?
How did you speak to
Easy,
your,
right?
no, I'm just saying.
No,
how-
we did a ton of.
We did
I was
a
gonna say
lot
a
of
lot
work before that
We
even
had
got to
so
town.
We've
many
had a
meetings.
million
We had-
meetings, we've had
Yeah.
joint meetings.
We had
And
individual
it's
meetings.
funny because the people that squawk the most don't come to any of the meetings.
That's how it works.
Frustrating.
That's how.
There was a
so-
workshop at the library. There's been.
So we even changed, we originally had 3 zones that we identified, and we changed it because we took input of people saying that's too much. So we actually made it be only 2, it's not much property, and one of it was a Salisbury town property that is, environmental stuff protection on it, and then there's another one that a lot of people complain because it's the dump yard of,
It's a storage.
I know
It's a
EJ will get
storage
that,
unit.
it's a storage unit, but it's gonna be cleaned out. So we picked places that people, it wasn't
They
necessarily
wanted it
somebody's
cleaned up.
backyard.
And that's
they
your
wanted
guys'
it,
problem, you
yeah.
have a lot of woods. And so you don't have areas that you're like, oh yeah, that would look better if it was this.
But we had, God knows how many meetings, as I'm sure you have, but it did pass. I don't think there was.
Flying color.
Yeah,
But we
I was
also,
gonna say, that's historical.
each board member individually.
Melissa, you were
met
in
with
town
people.
meeting last year.
We
You
went
remember
and
how
talked to
that
their,
went?
like I was on
Oh, yeah.
Facebook watching all the naysayers, okay, private
not
message,
fair.
let's sit down, let's meet at Dunkin' Donuts, because you have a lot of misconceptions of what's going on, and I brought the whole pile, What do you want to know?
Yeah.
Here's the information, I can't lie to you, it's right here. This is what's being filed. And
I
I'm spending,
read a ruling from our town council,
Yeah.
his opinion letter
yeah.
at our selectmen's meeting of a month and a half ago,
They don't believe it.
clearly outlines.
Yeah.
I feel for you guys, I do.
We had, we get a lot of grant money, and somebody even asked Neil, well, tell me how much really grant money you get, and Neil was able to pull it up. It was some crazy number, like $17 million in grants
Yeah.
we've gotten over the last couple of years, and he was able to show, this is money we would lose if we don't do this. So
And then
not
when we-
only the growth and not all the fines and everything, but even the grant money alone was huge.
Well, we lost
were
$4 million
able to
right under
do
Lafayette.
Lafayette Road, yeah.
And that's, you guys are in a tough situation.
I didn't do very passive.
Clickers.
Clickers go a long way. I'm just gonna say.
I was gonna say in our meeting, like the way that
clickers
people
are.
yell. What is it?
We have a little voting thing.
I think
You vote on
I
a
think
little
we honestly
remote.
could use that.
Because part of voting is peer pressure, right? So it's who's
We have to
around
raise
me.
hands. Watching
Yeah,
your
it's
faces.
raising your hands and everyone.
Can we get
And
like
voices.
Right, you need clickers. Clickers are the
You need
biggest thing.
clickers.
Yeah.
Too
Clickers.
expensive.
Yeah.
So that's easier, yeah, and then you don't have to feel like.
Ronnie's like, you can have whatever you want, Caleb. I'm going,
No. That one is on me.
oh, yeah, I forgot, you're in trouble. So, Ronnie, how do you feel about clickers? Because apparently that's something we're missing.
I'll have to look into that.
We're using it at work for.
I know.
So I just want to take it back real quick. Sorry, I couldn't follow up on one comment because it got like, I don't know, derailed down the road. But I don't think it can be just the two of you. I think it has to be all the members. No, at the same time.
For this discussion?
For
Horse and pony show.
yeah.
Oh,
We're going on the road.
Yeah, I don't think it can be just you. I hate to say that, but I think there has to be a sign that all the board is on board.
And I know actively, I as an alumni, am talking to a lot of Riley alumni, a lot of Newbury. I know Nurser is, Ronnie is. We're trying to get out all the information possible and trying to help.
Keep it going.
No, I send out messages even about your MBTA. I'll send out friends of mine in Raleigh. I'm like, what?
You're crazy. I am
What are you
too.
doing?
What are you doing?
They're on the positive side.
You think you have, you think you have financial problems
They
now?
won't, they don't even believe what the attorney says.
You have financial problems now, you wait. That attorney general is no joke.
To answer your question, we actually had a presentation at
She
our
is. We keep
town
trying.
meeting from the Merrimack Valley Authority. Yes, so they came and did a
I
presentation.
think Raleigh did the same thing, though, didn't you? Yeah.
That was the,
Same guy.
And was that well attended?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is yours
so that really helped.
You know what they should
So the
do?
planning board
And the
was
planning
done?
board
No,
was
what I
meeting
mean,
all along.
The 3A meeting
And
is
so-
The presentation.
And did it pass well?
So it passed.
But like well, or was it sketchy?
last?
No, I think it was
It
pretty,
would
pretty.
pass really well.
There was a lot
Yes.
of, let me say, social media things.
That need to
The
be
discussion
there.
was
Passed.
They voted
So the clippers are, okay,
Town meeting.
start voting.
People don't go to the.
I mean, I don't know.
Timers up there.
Now.
Okay.
So you can agree with your friends online and then.
It's a different.
You sit there waiting for
Part of different reason
Yes, that way
every.
people don't know who
Text town
they're
meetings,
for.
come meeting
get-
one.
Because you should see when hands get raised themselves, but you see all the necks go,
Yeah.
looking around.
That's the wonderful thing about being a selectman. I just sit there the whole time going, who's saying no?
That's what, you should see me, I'm over there like,
100%.
I sit in special places so I can be like, I want to see all the yes and no
They all
votes
sit
as
there.
they happen.
Yeah.
That's why clickers would be fast.
Kids,
A lot of pressure.
No,
You can spend a lot of people.
So,
Brian just learned a whole lot about
so I'm just trying to get, so are we committing to doing these joint meetings
3,500.
In each town.
in each town? School committee, select boards, board of selectmen, whatever it takes? Okay.
And when I had said the PTA stuff, I didn't think it needed to be like a separate meeting, but just make sure they have invitations knowing that we're doing
I think
this.
PTA, those folks that would get out and kind of
Yeah, like, come see it,
operationalize,
come
be
see
part
it.
of that
Exactly.
as participants too,
Well,
I'm
those
sorry,
are
as
those are the
attendees.
groups that you want them to get out the information to get people. Because you need the young families.
Council on Aging,
I was just thinking
PTA.
April
Right.
29th.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's why we need to meet.
Yeah. So when's your next select board meeting, Rob?
Monday night.
Monday, but we're doing 19 budgets. You don't
the
want
agenda-
to.
Someone
already set, so-
should someone be there from the school, obviously? You don't
We
say
need to
no.
present. Our agenda's already been set the Monday night.
So you're not talking about the school on Monday?
No.
I'm
Okay,
not
good.
talking about doing the presentation this Monday, no.
No, at all, you're gonna discuss the school?
Yeah, we don't want
No.
to, not a voting meeting, it would be like a town hall session.
Yeah.
Right, they're
Well, we
saying
need to
they're
get a
forum.
forum.
Yeah, a
To
forum.
the
Their
town
agenda's
hall.
already set.
What's that?
They're saying that the dog and pony show should be at town hall.
Separate from the
Yeah.
select.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've already
Yeah, it's
reviewed
its
the
own
Triton one, but
Make it into
Meeting, its
home.
own night.
When did you review the Triton? That Monday?
No, we haven't reviewed it as a board.
Tuesday.
What's that?
FinCom met the Tuesday.
You guys, the FinCom met.
Tuesday.
Did you, yeah, we, as the Board of Selectmen, we haven't done the Triton budget
Yeah,
yet.
watch that.
So are you gonna have someone from Triton there when you do though, right?
This Monday?
Well, I think someone should be.
It's not on
No,
the
it's
agenda
not
on
on the
Monday.
agenda.
It's not
So
on the
confused.
agenda.
When are you discussing Triton's budget?
That'll probably be the it's probably gonna be the 31st.
You need a visual on that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right, it's not part of the budget.
So yeah, someone should definitely be there, someone.
It's too many,
The agenda came out today. It's not on the agenda for Monday.
and that's a big one.
No, she's saying the following Monday.
Yeah.
We have a meeting on the 31st, is that a Monday? Yeah, 31st.
A
So
week
is that
after,
when- yeah.
it's 2 weeks from.
And that's the one that's gonna Triton on
You
it.
can't go there.
We haven't set the agenda yet, but I'm
Change it to
assuming,
the
but.
first. It was
31st is
I was gonna say,
Monday.
you can't go the 31st, but now you change it to the 1st.
The building
For a
committee-
building committee, it's the first.
Yeah, because I can't do the 31st.
I was gonna say, you both, you.
It's the first.
So your meeting's the same as ours?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're on the
But we're
building
not on the
committee.
31st.
Oh,
No, they're the other.
We only do it the 2nd and the 4th, so there's 5
oh my
Mondays.
God, we do it every Monday during budget season.
Well, no, we live in a very different world than you, God bless you, because
Our
we have a
charter's
wonderful
totally different.
finance director that shows up and says, here's our great budget, we go, oh, looks wonderful, thank you. It is so much
And then our
simpler
warrant
than this.
advisory that goes to town
Could I get
meeting
that?
is the one who oversees
Did you
the
just
budget.
hire him?
Yeah, I think you are getting that.
You hired him.
I'm just what?
So,
like, what are they gonna come in and
Richard,
say, yeah,
I'll
cool,
reach
you're
out
done.
to, myself or Brian will reach out to
Maybe I should.
Alicia to find out when the best time for
We have a finance.
Yes.
the presentation.
Yeah, because our annual town meeting's April 29th,
Then it goes to FinCom.
so.
6 weeks from 2 days ago. 6 weeks from 2 days.
We have a strong.
Better than the original. Yes.
There's so
The original
many
was a week
no
before our vacation.
That's what I was looking at.
It's the only time they
I was not texting people.
I'm checking finance.
That's right.
The president
Promise.
resigned our
I cannot get into more finance.
So we'll
No,
just
I
have to
think
discuss, we'll just have to
Yes.
discuss when to have it.
So we'll connect with each chair.
So we'll be reaching out to you
Okay.
to find out.
Whenever you you know me. Pretty easy going.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll be reaching out to Christine.
Set that up.
And you only got me for 2 more months, and then you gotta deal with her.
Wait, what?
Think about it. We rotate.
So that's positive. Nice how we framed that. Sorry, Donna.
No, we don't. Yes, we do. No, we don't. Yes, we do. No, we don't. Newbury's the only one who does it.
The
Speaking,
next,
why is there no one from Newbury other than Finance Committee?
Jeff is sick,
Leslie, I thought was coming.
Supposed to be.
Like,
Oh,
I
okay.
spoke with
I feel
Alicia
like I
the other
just
day,
haven't
and she
seen
said
them
she'd
at
be
our-
here, so I don't know.
I know, I agree.
I feel like they haven't been
here for a while.
So when we had the Zoom meeting, they were there.
Oh, that's right, that was 2 months ago, yeah, a month and a half
and
ago.
Jeff's not feeling good right now.
No, I was just curious, because usually they're vocal as well.
yeah, Leslie is supposed to be here tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
She said she was gonna be there on the 18th meeting, but I don't know.
Right.
So Linda, you're going to connect with me about a date?
Either myself or Brian.
Pardon me?
Either myself or Brian.
Okay.
The next DCC meeting is Thursday, April 10th. Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but when I was watching the joint committee meeting, Sean McFadden gave numbers that were in the.
I was actually going to read some of that tonight.
Okay, all right.
You presented some of it last week, correct?
Yeah.
I have additional information.
Okay. My main thing was letting people know that it's going to be, Raleigh's assessment number is going to be artificially sort of inflated.
Correct.
For the next 2 years. From
I don't think the
get-go.
reason was given.
I was going to share,
Yeah.
if I may. Linda,
Yeah,
is that okay?
go for it.
Okay.
That wasn't shared.
So I'll just kind of recap. So this has to do with the municipal revenue growth factor report for FY26. Sean explained that we had a bubble of growth in FY23 and FY24. Normally, the construction of a subdivision like Falcon Ridge, which was 49 homes, would take years, but the developer was smart and sold lots to individual builders. So the construction of all those homes took a fraction of the time it would normally take. Sean McFadden's our assessor, explained that the state works in 3-year averages. So due to the high growth reported in FY23, which was $468,625, and FY24, which was $392,680, our FY26 municipal revenue growth factor is inflated due to that bubble. The FY25 growth was only $168,691, and Sean's growth estimate for FY26 is only $8,800,000 in value, which would result in new tax revenue of $103,576. So it's important to note, as Narissa just said, due to the state using the 3-year average, it would take a couple of years for the growth bubble to work its way out of the calculation. So I just want to know, even during the approval of the FY25 new growth, during the tax rate setting process, the Department of Revenue called Sean to ask why the growth reported was not in excess of $300,000 due to their use of the 3-year average. Sean had to explain to them about the bubble of the new construction we had in a period of 2 years, but that was not a regular occurrence. Even on the municipal revenue growth factor report for the FY26, it lists in that summary that the FY26 estimated new growth is $333,778. That's an inflated figure. So I just wanted to finish by saying, and this is from Sean, he mentioned that he knows people in Raleigh feel like we have a lot of free cash. He explained to me anyway that although we have certified free cash of $2,600,000, in reality $500,000 of that was due to when the town meeting voted to reduce the Triton budget a couple of years ago, which was more of a bookkeeping action. Of the remaining $2,100,000 in free cash, $1,600,000 was already built into the budget. The town does not have a lot of extra funds, and with only $576,000 in new revenue, the increase of Triton's budget at the time was just under $1 million in the school budget is not sustainable. The town would prefer not to have an override, and we know that Triton would be looking for an override to renovate the high school in the future, but with the annual school budget increases and lack of funds, we have no choice but to have an override. So
Sean, having over 50 houses built in
Sean
less
told me
than
it was
2 years hurt us.
Sean told me it was also due to that $500,000 undervote, was
Yeah,
that
$500,000.
that additional revenue needed to be raised, not just free cash, but ongoing funds, and that's in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess 2 points is that you're going to be artificially inflated for 2 more years,
right,
straight off the bat, which is tough. We looked at, Brian and I sat down and looked at the sort of average for what Raleigh had seen in the past, and straight out of the gate, you were up $247,000. Roughly 200,000 of that looks like it was attributable to that high number. So unfortunately, I mean, we don't know how enrollment in the second part is going to affect that, but I think we all need to be prepared for higher numbers right out of the gate for Raleigh for the next couple of years. But also, I mean, I'm concerned. I don't want to call people out, but having heard, like, let's just vote it down, and seeing the effect that no vote.
I'm terrified if that happens again this year and the other 2 towns vote for what next year you still have to pay. We're going to have to pay no matter what.
But I think you're referring to the meeting last week. Is that what you were
well, it was said at the meeting last week, right, voted down, but my concern is that the last voted down has caused part of this. So I think people need to be really cautioned that going the voted down route again is potentially going to cost real dollars right down the road. So I just hope we can avoid that, because this is, I feel like I missed it, right? I didn't understand the ramifications of that vote going in. I should have. I had all the pieces, and I wish I had fought it harder. I said that to Sean when I talked to him. And it's going to affect us. So I just hope that within Raleigh, the boards are having the discussion to say we can't go that route again and put up a lower number or not to recommend without having real dollars out of people's pockets down the road, right? We know that was a consequence.
Can I ask a question? Again, dumb social worker, not a math person. So if I'm understanding this right, so a couple years ago, Raleigh voted down their budget, and so they paid $500,000 less?
The other towns funded it.
They
so
voted,
we had to.
Yeah, no, I know that, but then.
It happened at town meeting, too.
They had to make it up the following year.
Right.
So
How did they-
there was a motion.
How do you make it up? I mean.
It wasn't a
you have
full, it was only 500,000 less
Yeah.
than the requested appropriation, right? So you have the, sort of, this is the requested appropriation, this is the recommended amount. There was a $500,000 difference between those two numbers,
Which
right?
going in means it's a no vote, right? Because it's either a yes or no to the number that the
Right.
committee decides.
The other two towns then passed.
Right, I get
Passed the
that, but
budget.
how did
So
Triton-
Raleigh had
We had to
to
make up that 500,000 last year
So
from
they
2
had a
years
vote
ago.
in the spring town meeting.
So they had kind of like a
Yeah.
second double at the end of the year, special town meeting,
Mm-hmm.
had to vote to increase those revenues. That falsely, there's a differential there.
So the
between
minimum
real-
contribution got completely shifted off because of the number shell game, basically,
in
that was
part,
played?
in part because of that, and in part because of Falcon Ridge.
Right, we knew, so I thought it was always Falcon Ridge, that's what, I didn't even know the name of it, but that, whatever that huge
Those million-dollar
one.
homes,
Right,
yeah.
I thought it was always that, but it also sounded like some of it was a shell game, money moving stuff that ended up biting you in the butt, basically, so.
That was my understanding from having
Okay.
talked to Sean, yeah. So 2 years ago, or
2020.
And it's not the people that bought the Falcon Ridge, I don't.
No, you don't want
There's
to
been
put-
some negative
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
comments,
yeah.
well, well,
Yeah.
it's
No,
million
no, no.
dollars.
They bought a home.
Hey, they have every right,
Yeah.
come on in.
But every
They have
time-
every right.
They were built
Right.
so quickly that-
They're paying huge
Yeah,
taxes,
but it sounds
maybe to
like
have
that-
2 kids, and someone who's paying half the taxes they're paying has 2 kids in. So how do you think they feel?
Yeah.
You know
But
what I mean?
it's-
So
it
it's
sounds
not
like it
fair to-
wasn't just them, that it sounds like
it's
this.
a combination.
Yeah.
It's a combination
It's a
of
perfect
it.
storm.
Right.
So-
when I talked to Sean, he said that next year, he'd expect to see it sort of, the
Start to
single year number come back down, but the 3-year average is still going to be affected. Then the Falcon Ridge numbers will fall off first, which will make it a little bit better, and then the $500,000 for the vote will fall off second. But we're now talking 2 years out to see that
Yeah,
effect.
I guess, careful of the shell game you play, because the minimum contribution, and I'm really confused, so did Raleigh not pay their bill that year? I don't understand.
No, they did, they had to, right? So they
Okay.
essentially, I don't want to say artificially, because that's not the wrong
Playing
word, right?
catch up, really.
Yeah, they played catch up. So
They got the
it
extra
looks
500
like,
at the end of the
Ronnie, there
year.
was there was a motion to put a smaller number for the school budget into the town budget.
I remember that.
And voted on it
I remember
at
that.
the town meeting, but
And
they
that
had
didn't
to
make
make
sense
up,
then.
they had
It
to
made
make
less
up
sense
for
now.
it the following year and get it back in because it was voted on by the other two towns. So the following year, they had to come up with a revenue source to be able to offset the $500,000 shortage.
Again,
so it
that
looks
will
like
fit people in the
500,
butt.
yeah, it looks like $500,000 more than the actual spendable, quote unquote, revenue
Yeah.
for that year.
Yeah, so the minimum contribution looks inflated and that biting people on the butt. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all I wanted to interrupt for because I don't want to be bringing that up fresh next spring and in the midst of budget conversations, having a very,
And I was prepared to say that,
Yeah.
but the way the beginning of this meeting went, I thought, I'm not reading that. But since you brought it up.
Oh, we all know it.
well, yeah.
No, that just goes to show that we have to understand each other and get out to the people and talk to them, because we all have the same problem with the residents.
Yes, and this isn't, I always say it, that we have to stand together. We have to bring it to the people and explain it. We have to think of many different ways to explain it to the people.
So Brian, do you really think that the student population is heading downward? I mean, I still don't understand that, but you see, building more buildings, more housing, and plus it's gonna be more desirable for people with remote, working, that they don't need them going to Boston, so they can live 25, 30 miles way further south. So why is it like, you talk about a new school, you're talking about, we could have a smaller footprint. I don't get that part.
Yeah, so I mean, in Salisbury, population increasing, not school-age children. In Rowley and Newbury, the still decreasing not as quickly as Salisbury. So more housing units, but a lot of the housing units that are there are not moving, right? So the demographers call it aging in place. Sounds worse than it is. It's just people living in their houses longer, not selling it, kids coming home to live with mom and dad until they're 40, right? So it's just, the world is so expensive,
But
houses
there's
aren't getting sold.
About another 1,100 homes were built since I've been there.
In Raleigh?
In Raleigh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is about 30 years ago, but I'm just saying, so I don't
People
know,
having less
doesn't-
kids too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to undervote.
And it's,
Yeah, and
it's roller coastering.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can look at the
Yeah.
census.
Not on that plan.
The town census is gonna be the biggest thing, is to figure out when the population's gonna shift with how many kids are in, that are gonna be coming school age, and that's what we tend to look at, to figure out where we're going to have growth or decreases in the school population as we do look at the censuses.
I don't think in children population, until the values of home starts ebbing, and that the radical increases that we're seeing, you're not gonna see. Because people just, okay, well, I bought in at 3, the home's now worth 7, I'm gonna sit right here, because I can't get anything around me.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna end up happening for a
Yeah.
while. I was talking to, what's her name, from Merrimack Valley, Heidi, yeah. Hannah. Is it Hannah or Heidi? Anyways, I was talking to her.
Tonight, I haven't eaten
Yeah.
mine.
I was talking to her about it, and she was saying that, well, that's the problem. It's the home values are so expensive, no one can buy in.
Yes.
No young couple is gonna be buying any of our homes in all 3 communities. And seniors are not gonna move because, I mean, my aunt and uncle bought for $19,000 in 1967. They ain't moving out of the home. They go, it's cheaper for me to pay the increase in taxes.
Well, it's a 7% interest rate at the moment.
Yeah.
So if you sell,
That's
even though
crazy.
you're selling higher than you possibly bought, we were just having this conversation at school.
Yep.
You can't even, if you had bought a small starter home and then had kids, you are making that work because the interest rates are high. So although nobody's selling, the people that do want top dollar, because that's what their
And
house
that's
is
why
worth.
Salisbury's population is switching, because our
Yep.
condos are selling,
Right.
and they're selling between price points between three to 500,000 right now in average. And seniors who are selling their homes in Newburyport, Raleigh, Ipswich, down the line, oh, I'm gonna go to the beach, and they wanna come here and they can have a 2-bedroom condo, and that's why we don't see any increase in students.
Yeah, it appears population decline has slowed and turned in Raleigh. Raleigh had a blip of high numbers, and then it slowed again, and now Newbury and Pine Grove kindergarten numbers for next year are back up into the mid-60s. Salisbury's in the 30s, 35, 40. So it is, if this trend, right, as we've seen for the last 2 or 3 years, and fast forward a decade, if those numbers and trends hold through, and those size cohorts filter through to the high school, we're talking about a much more even split than 38, 32, 29% for the share of the district. And Newbury's going to find themselves more 33, 34, Salisbury 33, 34, Raleigh 33, 34, which means Raleigh sees the littlest change because they're kind of the middleman now, where it kind of shifts from Newbury to Salisbury, if this trend continues. But I don't trust anything anymore. What happened yesterday may or may not happen tomorrow. So.
But compared to if you lived in Medford, Melrose, Whitefield, where you're paying a lot more, that's why I don't understand when you say that Raleigh's gonna be going down, because, I mean, try checking a house in Stoneham, or seeing what they go for, or Melrose, or something like that. I mean, Raleigh's not that bad of a buy, for what compared to the neighboring towns closer inside.
It's the entirety of the North Shore. And I think we've kind of bottomed out, like where we have been projected by NESDEC, and then we used Jerry McKibben, who's out of South Carolina, but he's a very good demographer, and predicted that same thing, that we're in that, our right size as a district is 2,000 to 2,200 for this area. And that's where we've been hovering. We bumped up for 1 year, and now we're back kind of decreased again over the past year. But it's the same thing. I mean, it shouldn't be consolation, but look what's happening in Amesbury. what's happening in Georgetown is close to not going to exist
Yeah.
pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
And,
Hamilton, Wenham, too.
Hamilton, Wenham struggling. So it's not unique to the Triton towns. Again, that's not helpful, other than the fact that the reality is it is the whole North Shore with declining enrollment, all minimum contribution aid, minimum aid districts, and the towns. And we're $1 million for our health care for the district. It's ridiculous. So that seems to be where we seem to be kind of in, north or south of the right size, and we'll see if that stays.
Well, look at Raleigh had a bump. I remember when they were talking about building the school or using, the existing building, you decided it would be, the town was overall cheaper to do, to just modify the building we had. But if you decided to go to a new school, you would have probably not had enough space for the blip, number of students that did increase for that, for Pine Grove.
That will be the first battle with the building committee for the middle high school. Is MSBA likes to underinflate the numbers assumption, right? So Pine Grove, they said we could build a 63,000 square foot building if we built brand new. Pine Grove's 91,000. Pentucket is about 75 more kids than us as a district. Their school, their middle high school that they just built, is 70,000 square feet less than what exists for Triton. So we know there's more square footage. It's grossly inefficient square footage, right? Kind of lateral rather than 3 stories is kind of the way to go now, just because of efficiencies. So yeah, lots of battles ahead. The first being the enrollment certification.
Why does Kentucky get $5 million more than us?
No answer, right? Goes back to Harriet Stanley, and they regionalized the year before Triton. So 1995 was the first operating year, academic region K through 12. They did it in 94. And they are considered Merrimack Valley. We're considered North Shore of Boston. We're more affluent than them. That's the statement. That is not a fact. That's not a same reason why, right? The Chapter 70 formula thinks these are Newbury, Raleigh, and Salisbury are wealthy communities because you have oceanfront property, but you have people that are making $18,000 a year on Social Security just because they live in a family property that's been in the family for 200 years and is worth $1 million doesn't mean they can support it.
Yep.
So
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the other one problem.
So yeah, it's a broken system. We could do this all night.
Yep, but we're not going to.
But we're not going to. Sorry, I tried to not talk
Can I
a
just
lot
make
tonight.
one more? 'Cause I think
Okay, then this is you.
I think that makes sense. No. I was just going to say, I think that the advocacy letters that we're doing should also go out to select boards and finance committees, because it does include things like reimbursement for in-district special education locations, which aren't reimbursed for MSBA right now, or not to the extent they should be, I should say. It has all of our, based on our current estimates, what if they increased the different funds, what that could mean specifically to Triton. We did that math. I think all of that's an important thing to have, because it goes to, what Peter's just saying about like your building size, right? When MSBA is unwilling to look at in-district special education, they're unwilling to look at preschool. I mean, remember we had this conversation at Pine Grove, right? When they don't consider preschool to be part of your offerings that you're giving and willing to give you space in the building, right? Space credit in the building for that, that's a problem. So those.
When you stand up, I'll tell you shoot.
Don't trip.
Brian died to read that.
So I think it would be helpful if we just make sure we're sharing those letters so that it's all, if we're doing the research, might as well make it stretch.
Yeah, she's talking about the advocacy letters we sent to the senator.
Legislators.
And Kastner and Shand. And I don't know if you guys know, but Senator Todd did he did push to get remote meetings, and it did pass.
Oh, did
Yep.
it? Did it?
Yes. I don't know if it's signed, but it was on the governor's desk today.
He said, I looked at his Facebook. He said it's
all right.
June 20th.
So he did push that.
Then it must have been signed.
Just extended it.
I should probably fact check that stuff from Facebook.
No, I'm just saying.
Just allows you to meet.
March 31st was when
You know that thing we gotta read at the beginning, section, da-da-da-da, we can extend it out.
So we just asked them to put it on there, so.
4 hours.
when you say of things, did we get anywhere with them? I think they are listening. I mean, that 211 plus 21, I think is really going to take off because that 211 plus 21 is going to be continuing to add more districts to
You're
it.
getting cities like
representatives and more
Newport, Maine,
senators,
small and medium cities saying, I can't afford it either now.
Right.
Well, Newburyport got more money.
Boston is technically,
Yeah, but-
they're a hold harmless district as well.
Who is?
Boston Public Schools.
Oh, Boston.
So I think Kastner and Tara are doing a great job to try and.
They're not
I won't say anything to
Right,
that.
yeah.
Let's not speak badly about our allies.
Like all my friends.
I will not say anything about that with Boston.
Okay.
I will keep my mouth shut.
And Kastner's
Still
at least
recording.
starting it at 100 opposed to being at 60 and then they bring it up.
And requiring DESI to put out the number, which is, when she first
Instead
asked me,
of
I was like,
shorting
that doesn't
it.
make any sense, and it's brilliant, because DESI doesn't like to put out the real number. and
Yeah,
that's
shorting
why
We're all
it
guessing for
doesn't ever
months
get funded.
afterwards.
Right, and the
Shenanigans.
more we push for the things that Triton needs, I think Senator Tar and Kastner and Shan are doing the best that they can. Does anybody have anything else? I think it's enough. The next meeting is April 10th at 6:30 in Raleigh.
Town hall.
And me or Brian will be reaching out to the chairs to make sure that we get this going.
Sounds good.
All right, meeting's adjourned.